Hey tribe, how are you? There's a lot coming through. I want to keep it pretty clear for this share because I want to talk a little bit about reflection as well at another during another share. But today, what I wanted to express to you guys is just again a little nugget of importance around inspired action, and yet the discernment of our ability to get to that place where we trust and have faith and follow through with the intuitive guidance. And that it is unique for each and every one of us, as in the how we set life situations up for us to learn from ultimately and to grow from. And what I observe as just a slight kind of different tendency from other humans is over the years, so over my lifetime, I was somebody who just took leaps. I just took the action. Without it making sense, without knowing how it was going to turn out, without knowing the outcome, without necessarily having any money lined up, without just taking leaps, right? And it's because of these life cycles, these many life cycles that I've already been through, that I can testify to the work as far as how we catch ourselves. Now, and the paradox is that when we don't take inspired action and we stay in the fear of safety, the illusion of safety rather, under the veil of darkness and fear, that's when we start to perpetuate those bottled emotions, those distorted malalignments from within self. They start to spin out in our reality, and then they create those patterns that get worse and worse and worse, patterns of anxiety, patterns of depression, patterns of whatever they might be, right? Binge eating or binge drinking or whatever. They're different for all of us, and every one of us has a different point of attraction. So it's not even like I can say right or wrong or unhealthy and healthy, because each and every one of us will have a different alignment that just is part of our own journey, right? Which is why I've never set out to make people feel bad about wanting to drink alcohol or making people, and that's because that was an edge of judgment that I often felt in spiritual communities that I didn't quite align with, because of how it would make me feel, and because of how I was aware it was making other people feel, and the fact that people wouldn't do spiritual practice because they thought they couldn't do spiritual practice because they did they drank alcohol or they did drugs or something, and so, well, I can't be spiritual, I'm not allowed in those spiritual communities. Do you see what I'm saying? So rather than having this all inclusive, we're all just people and we're all having a different point of attraction, we're all having different experience, and yet there is something connecting us all, and that's the divine spark, right? There is this heart that connects us all. And just purely because of the life that some of us have lived, we're in this quite radical, shifty times of monumental change. And it would appear that some of us who've lived a life of perpetual change and flexibility and adaptability, having to kind of, I described that recently to someone. I feel like I'm just like on a pond and I'm just sort of hopping from one lily pad to the next. And I don't, even though I am inside, in my beingness, I feel kind of dropped in and settled. My physical reality is very like bouncing around, right? And and feeling into that flow took years and years and years of practice. Then once you feel the flow, you might have to take leap after leap after leap from the place of flow, still not knowing the outcome. And the fact is, that's the whole point, isn't it? We're never meant to know the outcome, because the moment is when we're practicing the joy or the juice of life. In this moment is when we're feeling that connection. And the more we yoke that connection, the more permission we tend to give ourselves to take those leaps, right? To move that in that inspired action. And I need to remind us of this when we're in our default patterns, right? When we're in this patterning of nothing ever changes, or like, yeah, same old, same old. That's kind of the point of that personal love ritual, that number 4 of like, actually go do something different. Don't make excuses. Book the ticket. Go, if, because that's again that observation of, yeah, we do repeat patterns if we never move in a different direction. If we just talk about spiritual stuff but never sit down and meditate in quiet, that's different. If we talk about being super nice, and then go around judging people, that's different. If we, talk about taking a holiday and then don't actually book the ticket, that's not right. Because I have friends, I have people around me who they go, oh yeah, 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 I really want to travel, and I'm like, well, do you travel? No. And I think, well, that's either a projection that somebody is desiring to create, but they haven't quite physically moved in that direction yet. Or we're just in patterns talking about it, and or people will say things to us that they think sounds nice, but it's not necessarily natural to them. And so that's where we're having to find and navigate new paradigm relationships, because the veils are thick and people can say one thing, but deep down their core essence might not be the truth of that. So the deeper we go into self, the deeper we have to know our intuition. Yeah. But when it comes to breaking some of those patterns, it really is that final step of taking inspired action, which usually just forces us to break and shatter a bunch of patterns because you've taken a leap. If you think about it, like, once you take that leap, you're not going to be on that cliff anymore. Everything that you created on that cliff is you've stepped off it. And let's face it, once you're fallen, you're not going back. So, um, so yeah, take inspired action, guys, and let me know how it goes. Let me know how you're getting on with it. And share stuff with one another. A lot of you guys are. It's so nice when the flux happens and there's like lots of sharing going on. Share your insights, share the shit that you're going through, or reflect back like Amanda did about, like, I'm glad it's not me. Yeah, for sure. It's so nice to just tune in from time to time and remember we're not alone on this intense journey. And then Frances reminded me as well, there's an actual disclaimer in the Fearless Life Guide about, like, this work is not for everybody. Not everybody necessarily has the field of this emotional connection the same way we do, those of us who gravitate to me in the Fearless Life Guide, right? So yeah, taking action can be the where we hold ourselves back. And I'm observing that just in certain collectives, right? It's that we get inspired and then we're like, yeah, 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 yeah. But then when it actually comes to following through and taking action, we make an excuse. We just don't get around to it. And then weirdly, we loop back into the same patterns. So take action. It's got to happen. You got to take that inspired action. Otherwise, and here's the thing, energy moves. If you don't do anything different, energy won't move in a different direction, especially if we think we're stuck, or we're complaining about not moving, or it's always the same. It's like, well, if it's always the same, it's because you have to start taking action, doing things you don't normally do, taking action in directions you don't normally take, and then allowing things to unfold off the back of that. Thanks, you guys, for listening, and have a great day. Love you loads.